let's continue on. Let's go to Glenn, WB6RLC, and then if you'll turn over to Phil, N6WHK, and then Phil to Bob, WA9JIB, and then to Jay, NY6L, and then turn it back to me. WB6RLC, WJ6W.
Alrighty, thank you, Dave. WJ6W, WB6RLC, and the illustrious crew. Glenn here, Cathedral City, next Spurg over from Palm Springs, where the desert meets the sand. Anyway, so my meter's looking kind of weird. I don't know what's going on. I hope I'm sounding okay. Let's see, how am I sounding, Dennis? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Anyway, so, okay. Anyways, that's the nice thing about having Zoom. Yeah, the rig tonight's the Swan Signet 300 feet, and just having a nice week of it. Last week was, the shakeout, and our Aries group has a new leader, and best shakeout we've ever had. So that was good. So then heading up to Maricopa this weekend to Dennis and I are going to kind of reinstall a Collins AM transmitter, a big old broadcast transmitter for a friend, and get that together. So it's just going to be some traveling and a good week. So it was a good week, and it's going to be a good week. So anyway, over to you, Phil. N6, Whiskey Hotel Kilo, is it? WB6RLC.
WB6RLC and 6WHK. Well, if I drop out, I'm having some coaxial problems here at the QTH, but I think I got, on this rig, I won't have the problem. I'm running the Swan 350 Delta through the Maritron. Hope I'm running enough power, about 300 to 400 watts. And looking forward to our program tonight. I know the question, so I'm thinking about that. Anyway, WA9JIB. Over to you, sir. And 6WHK.
N6WHK in the group, WA9JIB. Bob over here in La Cañada. Pretty warm today. So yeah, I'm running the ASUS station again tonight. Didn't want to put on the big iron. I had it on last week. But I thought, it's a little warm tonight, so I'll give the ASUS a lap or two. Something like that. Let's see, a couple comments. One to Vaughn. Yeah, I thought you were going to be in New Mexico or something. Maybe your trip has already occurred. And you've gone and come back. And that gal or that person from JPL who we contacted didn't look like that person was terribly helpful in finding you DVDs, but maybe it all worked out, I don't know. Anyway, you can maybe comment on that next go around. Other thing is, hey, I just made dinner and I made something I've never made before in my, I made an Italian pasta called gnocchi, Gnocchi, with and pasta sauce and a little bit of chicken on the side. And it's made from potato dumplings. And my grandmother used to make them, my mom used to make them, and I probably did help make them years ago. Anyway, I was at Ralph's today, and they had these packages on sale, and I'd never even seen them before, so I thought, I'll give it a try. So, pretty good. I don't know if anybody else out there has ever heard of it. It's pronounced Gnocchi, gnocchi. And, but it's quite delicious, so I'll toss that up for consideration. And with that, over to Jay, NY6L, WA9JIB.
Okay, very good, Bob. Thank you very much, WA9JIB. NY6L, Jay here, Hesperia, where it's still kind of warm up here for some reason. About 70 degrees. But anyway, I'm looking at the question for tonight. My old ham buddy friends that I've known, they have passed on their silent keys, unfortunately. So Yeah, I just don't have, I can't answer that question because I haven't, I just don't have, old friends anymore that, were ham, so, oh well. I guess I'll just have to pass on this question. All right there, Dave, save me from all this. WJ6WNY6L Hesperia.
Yeah, Jay, well, I'm having the same problem coming up with something, but I'm working on it. Maybe you will. After you hear a few answers, something might occur to you. And let's see, Bob on the gnocchi. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. It's not my favorite pasta, but if you go, I've been to some pretty good Italian restaurants where it was okay. But we happen to have Italian tonight too. We had lasagna from Trader Joe's. That's pretty good. A lot of these pre-made things out of the freezer we're not big fans of. We usually cook, from scratch. But this is one thing we like, Trader Joe's lasagna. So anyone interested in that, I invite you to give it a try. Boy, I am going to lose my voice here. Okay, let's see if anyone else wants to get on the list now for the Vintage Sideband Roundtable.
4DLA.
Okay, ending in LA, give me your call a couple of times. Oh, it's N6DLA, is that right?
November 4, Delta, Lima Alpha.
Matthew.
Roger.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Just missed the first part of it, but we got you, Matthew. A little weak. Anyone else? K6CTW, is that Ken? The famous Ken, well, welcome, and glad to have you on board tonight for the Vintage Sideband Roundtable. Anyone else that wants to get on the list? Come now. Okay, let's see. Well, let's go through the remainder of the list, and then we'll see if Rocco's around. I don't know how much longer my voice is going to last here. Fellas, give me a little chat there, and then we'll see if Rocco's around. KW1NG Ken, go ahead, and then turn it to W6YEC George, and then to N4DLA Matthew, and then to K6CTW Ken, and then back to me. KW1NG, WJ6W Dave and Tarzana.
Okay, Dave, thank you. WJ6W and the fading voice, KW1NG in Alpine, 30 miles east of San Diego in the foothills, about 1,850 feet elevation. We're not on a vintage rig tonight. It's sitting right next to it, but we are on the 7300. It is feeding an SD1000 single 3500 linear, so that's kind of vintage, out to a full wave loop, around 30 feet high, something like that. Running about 500-600 watts peak. Beautiful day today, my gosh, it was warm and the sun was gorgeous. The air was just a little bit warm and just really a Chamber of Commerce day here, so I'm gonna have to think on that question, so I'll see if I can get that done before we get back to me. Alright, it goes on to George, W6YEC, my neighbor to the west, KW1NG.
Yeah, okay, Ken. It sounded very nice tonight. W680 Echo Charlie, and it's not tuned up fully, and let's see if we can get it tuned up a little higher than what we are. So we'll have to see what's going on here. Just try that, see what happens. All right, there we go, that's better. You got to push the right button in. So there's on average rather than that makes a difference. Anyway, yeah, we're doing okay down here. I hope everybody else is doing well. And thanks for taking the room. And I'll get it back to you. We have Rocco's showing up. WJ6W, W6Y. Okay, George. Well, everyone's coming in tremendous signals tonight. You were 20 over. Most guys are somewhere in that neighborhood. So let's go turn it over to Matthew, N4DLA, and then to Ken, K6CTW, and then back to me. Go ahead, Matthew.
Okay, thank you, WJ6W, in the earlies for the Minute Sideband Roundtable from Matthew and 4DLA. And I went to Pacificon Flea Market there in San Ramon this past Sunday, and there was some neat vintage gear there. There was a pristine SBE 34, and they only wanted $100 for it, and I almost walked away with it, but it's a little before my time, but it's kind of difficult to work on. Everything's pretty compact in there, but just not a scratch on it. It has a power cord. I mean, it's just amazing. Never seen one that good. In such good shape. But it was from an estate of a collector, it looked like, from where the people were handling and selling there. So, hey, over to Kevin. Welcome to the group. K6 CTW in the group from N4DLA.
Okay, WJ6W here. All right, well, let's see if there's anyone else who wants to get on the earliest list for the Vintage Sideband Roundtable coming out. Well, no customers. I wonder, Rocco, you around? And can you rescue me here? N6KN, WJ6W.
Yeah, I'm here. Let's see if I'm kind of on frequency. I'm going to try to get us on, let's see, a little bit down. Yeah, that's pretty close. Okay, go ahead and give me the list there. Well, I think I've got the list. Dave, I'm going to read it to you. You tell me if I missed anybody. AK6R, W6CVA, K6NTA, DQ, QNG, RLC, WHK, JIB, NY6L, NGYEC, DLA, and CTW. Did I miss anybody?
No, you got it all. That's it. Very good.
Okay, where do you want to be? Want me to put you after, let's see. I'm going to put you after Vaughn, VTA, and then the next batch, we'll start with Dennis, okay?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. So go ahead and have a good net.
Okay, before I get going here, anybody else trying to get on the list? Okay, we have to go with that. Welcome everybody to the Vintage Single Sideband Roundtable. This is Rocco, N6KN, in Rancho Palos Verdes, California. I'm the host for this evening's roundtable. Tonight, I'm using 32S3, driving a small solid-state amplifier, and the receiver's a 75A4. We meet every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific time. An informal gathering at 6:30 to record early check-ins. This roundtable meets on 3895 kilohertz plus or minus, depending on whether the frequency is occupied or we have lots of QRM or whatever, or we just drift away. To check into this roundtable, you must be using a radio that was manufactured in or before 1980, or be homebrewed with equivalent technology. Transistors, tubes, hybrids are all welcome, as long as they were manufactured in 1980 or before. However, if you're a first-time check-in, you may use a modern radio for the purpose of inquiring about joining this group and obtaining a vintage radio. This group is a great resource for finding and repairing vintage equipment. It really is, and we encourage vintage radio newcomers. We have a website, groups.n4dla.com.
.io/G/vintage SSB with many station photos and files. We also have an email reflector. If you would like to access this website and reflector emails, send an email to Mike, K6ZSR, and you can see QRZ.com for his email address. We also host a live video simulcast via Zoom. And if there's that, send an email to Dennis, W6DQ. Consider using the KFS Web SDR on your computer to hear many more stations, especially when the conditions get crummy, as they sometimes do. Let's see here. We have a discussion topic that we call the question of the evening, and I'll ask that just a second. At the end of each roundtable, there's a Golden Cup Award that's given to a roundtable member who's singled out because of some outstandingly interesting or funny or informative answers when they make their changes. Before we begin, are there any announcements only of interest to vintage SSB radio topics? Go now.
This is Roger, Whiskey 6 Charlie Victor, up on a copy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I usually have my KWM2 with me over at the home base, but since we're in the campground, I'm using my FTDX 3000 for the moment.
Well, I think we can excuse you since you're camping, and we know you've got a pile of junk. Oh, sorry. A pile of wonderful vintage radios there somewhere. Roger, don't worry about it. All right, let's see. Any other stations wanting to check in right now?
WAP, Gary and Doherty.
Well, out of that, I got K2RP. Hello, Ron. Who was the other one?
WA7VIP, Gary and Doherty.
Okay, Gary, WA7VIP, got you. Any others? Alrighty, let's jump into it. So the question of the evening is, sometimes you run into old friends from the old days on the air or at swap meets, conventions, all kinds of things. Have you ever run into or tried to reconnect with old ham friends from many years past after you lost contact with them? Alright, so let's see who's got what to say about that. AK6R Bob, take it, give it to W6CDA Roger. Roger, please give it to Vaughn, K6NTA. And Vaughn, would you please give it to Dave, WJ6W. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, N6KN from AK6R. Very good. Beautiful signal tonight. Thanks for taking the net tonight, Rocco, and for WJ6W for taking the early. Well, tonight we're running the TS830, and it's going into an Ameritron AL1600 amplifier, and it's going into a Palomar Engineers end-fed, off-center fed antenna. Roughly 95 feet of wire, and choke at the 40-foot mark on the coax, making it an off-center fed antenna. Anyway, that's what we're running tonight. Excuse me. Choking up for something, don't know what it is. But anyway, very interesting question. I have too many answers to it. I can't figure out which one I like the best, but I'm sure you'll all decide. The first thing that comes to mind is that, particularly since Pacificon was this weekend, and I did not go to Pacificon for a couple of reasons. They wanted us to be a vendor, but I decided not to this year. But I remember going about 4 years ago, right before COVID, it was 2020, and we went up to Pacificon. We were a vendor up there, and we had lots of products and all that kind of stuff. And we gave a talk on something or other, RFI probably. And anyway, one of the guys that came up after the talk said, "Hi, my name is Steve." and I knew you back in 1974 when you lived in Berkeley. I said, what? This is 2020, right? So it's like almost 50 years past. And I said, you know, I haven't seen you in over 50 years. And just a little background on the story. In 1974, I was very much into RTTY, and I was working with Herb Hoff, W6FSD, who you may remember started the demodulators, the ST5, the ST3, ST6 demodulators, which were very, very popular. And he sold those all over the world. And we just had a wonderful time doing that. Stand by. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, we talked about that quite a bit, and he looked at me and said, you know, we used to work RTGY on the repeaters and also on the low band in the 1970s, and I haven't seen you in 50 years. And so I got to asking, and I said, well, how is your wife, Annie? And he said, you know what, I'm still married to the same gal after all these times, and he was a janitor at UC Berkeley, where I went to school, and he had retired since then, and we reminisced for about 3.5 hours and talked about the good old times and all the different things that we had. We started with a Model 15 teletypes and built our own demodulators, and went from there to all sorts of different types of radios and other things. And he still had his original Model 15 teletype in the garage. So it was an interesting story, a nice reunion, and I thought it was kind of appropriate for tonight. The other quick little story I have is that I got married in 1974, and I got divorced in I think it was 1988, I guess it was. And married my high school sweetheart, by the way. Anyway, I got divorced, and it turns out that I met him about 10 years later. And he said, you know, Bob, I met your ex-wife. And in fact, I ended up marrying her. And it turns out that I ended up marrying his ex-wife. So essentially we swapped wives, but unknowns to each other at the same time. So it was a funny coincidence, but I had a wonderful daughter by his wife, and he went off and explored the world with her. So it was just an interesting coincidence that I had no idea had happened until I had met him, and he told me the story. And to this date, I think he's still married to her, and they live up in Washington somewhere. They were big boaters and traveled around the world on sailboats and stuff. Anyway, that's my two stories. I hope you like them. And let's turn it over to Roger, see what he's got to say. W6CVA, out in the boondocks from AK6R.
Oh, Bob, you're a crack up. Oh, my gosh, your stories make me laugh. Anyway, you know, I didn't catch the question. There was a little static. So if you can brief me on the question there, I would be glad to answer it. Over.
Okay, let me give it a shot. So, the question is, have you ever run into old ham friends at conventions or on the air or wherever after losing contact with them for a number of years? Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Running into old ham friends. Well, not at any conventions there. This is Roger, W6CVS, Californina. 5,200 feet, running about, close to 500 watts here. So, anyway, not exactly. I did look up an old TV buddy that turned to be an advance for about 50 years. So, yeah, we used to do 11 meters on 11 meters back in Miami, North Miami Beach. and he was on the Miami Beach side, and I was on the mainland side. There's an intercoastal waterway, and we used to talk all the way down to South Miami, which is probably about 45 miles or so on Lucky Meters on Skynet, and it was really, sort of flat. So anyway, just about last year, I looked him up. I knew his full name, so I looked him up and found out that he was on the FCC roster there as that band. So I saw his number. I gave him a call, and he called me back, and he's got his own repeater system. He's got his own HF. He's got a huge stack of all kinds of equipment. He goes to all the ham trucks. So I didn't really meet him at a ham convention, but I did take the time to look him up, and so he chimed in a couple times on Echo Lake. We connected and on C4FM. But that's about my only story. And I still got some of his equipment he gave me way back when in 1981. I got a Milwaukee, a JBSC 1001 scope that I'm going to get somebody to help me fix. But other than that's my story for now. Let's go over to Ron, K6FTA. I think that's called over. Over to you, Ron, W6CVA.
Yeah, W6CVA from K6FTA. All right, the handle here is Vaughn, Victor Oscar November in Woodland Hills. And the rig tonight is 100B driving the SB220. And the antenna is an inverted V at 55 feet. So, about the question. Well, there was one person that I looked for, and I checked old call books, and I checked as far as I could, QRZ and that sort of thing, but I could never locate his call, so maybe he left his call drop. That would be unfortunate, but he was a good friend when I was in the, let me think, 8th grade. Yeah, 8th or 9th grade. He lived just down the street a little ways, and he had a telephone pole for his antenna. I thought that was rather unique. Anyway, the other successful discovery was a friend who was an Eagle Scout when I was a Cub Scout, and he was a ham, and I met him, and then discovered he was a ham when I got my license, and then I was at that point I was a Sea Scout, and then I lost track of him, and lo and behold, I guess 30 years later, I discovered he worked at Hughes with me. Yeah, he didn't work with me, but he worked at the same location of Hughes Aircraft that I did out here in Canoga Park. I don't remember when they closed that down, but might have been 25 years. No, it was more than 25 years ago. Anyway, enough of that. And onward, let's turn it over to Dave, WJ6W, K6ZTA.
Thank you, Ron. K6ZTA, WJ6W. Dave, next door to Ron here in Tarzana, California. We're running a KWM2 tonight, 30L1. And that's the story here, about 500 watts out. Well, let's see, for the question, I said initially I couldn't think of anything, but I did come up with something. I was, early in my career, I was living in Sioux City, Iowa, working there, of course, and became friends through another friend with someone who used Apple II computers. We were both interested in Apple II computers, and we were owners of them. So that would have been in the late 1970s. So got to know him pretty well, and we did things
forward a number of years, I'm out here in California, and I run across him on the radio. Totally unexpected, and he was contacting South African stations, as some do. And so I kind of joined in on that, and we became reacquainted, and I was surprised to know he was a ham and vice versa. So that's reconnecting with an old friend who I didn't even know was into ham radio. And unfortunately, he's a silent T now, and I've forgotten his call. His name was Tom. But anyway, that's my story, and we miss hearing him on the air. He had a really good signal out here from the Midwest. So back to you, Rocco, N6KN, WJ6W.
Yeah. Okay, great stories. The next four will be W6DQ, Dennis, give it to Lisa, KF6QG. Lisa, please give it to Glenn, WB6RLC. And Glenn, would you give it to Phil, N6WHK? Go ahead, Dennis.
All right, Rocco, thank you very much. N6KN and the Vintage Single Sideband Roundtable, W6DQ here. Dennis out in Inyo Kern, and Glenn was talking earlier about the heat out there. Yeah, a little bit more than we did. It only got up to 85 here today. And Jay was talking about that too, that we're our high desert and our low desert hot spots out here. But yeah, only got up to 85 today. It's really been cooling off. It's really been nice. And when I first came on the air here, it was 68. I'm not sure what it is now. It's probably a little cooler. So good, nice, clear day. Just a gorgeous day today. Anyway, let's see. Tonight we are running the KWF 380 again with the Alpha 87 now to the horizontal loop. 540 feet of wire at 50 feet in the air, and we're yakking on an SM 280 mic with that Collins rig. And everybody's sounding fantastic tonight. Conditions are really, really nice, so I'm hearing everybody just fine. So, interesting question, and there's so many that come to mind. And it's like that's the whole thing about going to the conventions, and we used to go to all the conventions before COVID. We've now started going back again, but you always run into somebody. But the one that struck me as most interesting was this was back in the early 2000s. My friend Richard Coyne, now Silent Key, WW750, with Whiskey 7 Delta. He used to work at HRO out in Anaheim, and I remember him. Richard and I were driving out to Fort Tuthill for the Ham Fest out there one year, and it was probably around 2001, maybe 2002, just before he passed away. And we're cruising along, and I was driving. We had my HF rig on. We're monitoring 40 meters, and this call comes on, and I'm going, that sure sounds like somebody I know. And listen in a little bit more, and sure enough, WA6 TNW, who happened to be one of my good friends when I was in engineering school. And he and I used to hang out together all the time back then. But just random chance running across him on the radio while we were mobile, cruising along. And we hooked up, and we exchanged a lot of email. We would talk on the radio when we could. And that went on for a number of years. Then he retired. He was living out in Vegas. He retired, and I was just looking him up a minute ago. I haven't spoken to him for a few years, but he's now up in Idaho. So I'm going to have to get back in touch with him. So that's a reminder for me to get back in touch. But I've run into, the other odd one that was interesting, and you guys know him, most of you know him, and many of you know him, is Sid, K6AM, who has been on here many, many times in the past, and he hasn't been on here for a while, but I haven't been talking to him lately. He and I were best friends in high school. That's going back a few years. That's in the 60s. And well, I got my novice license. He was still a novice. He had gotten his novice license. I got my novice license. And he went off to college. We kind of lost track of each other for quite a while. But I was living in Hong Kong, working on the airport construction over there. And out of the blue, I get this note, like an snail mail from Sid. And he was working Hong Kong. They're actually working in China, but staying in Hong Kong. It was like, of all the things to have happen. Anyway, we got back together and we've stayed in touch. He's gotten on with us on the group here with the Vintage Sideband Roundtable, but he hasn't been on here for a while. But we want to get him back on the air. I've been bugging him to get back on the air, but we've maintained that friendship over all those years with that little hiatus in the middle. But of all places to run into him, but Hong Kong. Anyway, that was pretty cool. Anyway, excuse me. Rocco, thank you for taking the host duties this evening with a great question. And, yeah, we were at Pacificon this year. Sorry we didn't see you. Sorry you didn't make it involved. We would have loved to have seen you there, but we did see a bunch of old friends and meet a bunch of new ones, too. So, anyway, Rocco, thanks for that opportunity. And Dave, thanks for taking the earlies. And I'm going to give it to Lisa. So, KF6QNG and the Vintage Single Sideband Roundtable. This is W6DQ.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Rocco, for hosting the roundtable this evening. Well, my story is a sad one. Starts out sad, but ends up with a happy ending. So, anyway, and I think y'all have heard it before, but this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, many of you know that I was married once before, and my husband passed away from cancer. Dennis was a member of our Long Beach Club, known him for many, many years. My husband and I, we were old friends. And so my husband passes away, and you know, as hard as it is, you know that life has to go on. And anyway, I was getting to the point where I knew I needed to move forward and start living my life, because that's what he would have wanted. And so the thought of dating and going through that whole get to know you thing, just, I mean, I've been married, you know, for a long time, so, you know, not in the dating scene for a long time, obviously. So, I'm thinking about people I knew, and, you know, the circle of friends and people that I've met. So I'm flipping through the Long Beach roster, an old roster. Yeah, Dennis, I know he's a nice guy, and he was single at the time, and so thought, well, maybe I'll call him up. Luckily, he still kept the same phone number. So anyway, because we had lost contact for a number of years, I know. And he came back to the Long Beach Club about the time that I kind of started knowing I needed to move on with my life. Sorry, I know it's taking a long time. But anyway, so I called him up and, you know, hey, what you doing kind of thing. And so I think you guys know the rest of the story, but anyway, I asked Dennis out for an evening, and the rest, as we say, is history. So now we're married. So happily married, yes. So that's connecting with an old friend in a completely different way. Now, neither one of us would have ever thought, you know, anything like this was possible. Anyway, here we are now, 5 years into marriage, and having a great time, man. Yeah. So, anyway, that's my story. So, with that, I'm going to send it over to Glenn, WD6 RLC, KF6QNG.
Let's see, how's that working? Is that doing better? Anyway, yeah, should not be any carrier on my signal now. Anyway, so Glenn here, WB6RLC, Cathedral City. Yep, gives me the sun stuff. Yeah, I had the carrier balance moved over for tune-up and forgot to put it back to zero. Anyway,
No, I don't think I'd heard that story, Lisa, that you asked Dennis out. That's pretty good. You go, girl.
Let's see, Rick tonight's the Swan Signet
300 Bravo. Sure 444 Mike, doing off center fed dipole at 32 feet. Well, let's see. I only have one old friend that I tried to get in touch with from eons ago. So here goes the story. About 1967 or something like that. Before that, I got my amateur radio license, my novice license, through the Tri-County Amateur Radio Association there in Pomona. And met a friend there that's also about my age. And we got our licenses together, and we became friends. We used to work on letters or the articles for the newsletter for Tri-County and all of that good stuff. Then, I was going to JC. I got out of JC and went to the Marine Corps, did some time in the Marine Corps, wandered aimlessly around the California Central Coast and got a real job and, whatever. Well, that was, like I said, about 67 maybe. So, during COVID, just a year or two ago, I thought, I'm going to look him up. And couldn't remember his, call or anything. But there are not too many Bill Finkelsteins in QRZ, so he's pretty easy to look up. Bill Finkelstein. And his family had a egg ranch out in the south part of Ontario. So that was always kind of fun too. But anyway, so, George said you got an email address. And so I got his email address, sent him an email, said, well, are you this Bill Finkelstein? And, this is Glenn, and, we do all that stuff. And I got a reply, but that was about it. Basically a great big ho-hum. Not really like, hey, let's get together. What are you doing? Anything else? Let's carry this on. Great big old hairy, what. So, wasn't a really good story, but at least I reached out to him and tried to say hi. He had no answer. But anyway, so I don't know what was going on, but that's what the story is. So anyway, Bill, coming over to you, KN6WHK WV6RLC.
WV6LRC and 6WHK. Well, I don't have no fancy story, but I am running my Swan 350D, and I've been sitting here thinking, and I can't think of anybody since I've been an amateur that goes back that far. Most everybody I know is here in San Diego County, so none of them are real strangers, and I haven't been out of I've lived here in the county for the last 30 to 40 years, and most all the guys I know and girls have lived in the same county. So nobody that I can come up with. Otherwise, in different things, I can come up with people. But for amateur radio, no. So with that, let's turn it back to the control. N6KN and 6WHK.
Okay, Phil. Gotcha. Well, really interesting stuff out there. Okay, WA9JIB, Bob. You take it, give it to J, NY6L. J, give it to Ken. KW1NG. And Ken, please give it to George, W6YC. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, N6KN, WA9JIB. Up here in La Cañada, the name is Bob. Signals are good tonight, most everywhere. Band is quiet, so been a nice night so far. A roundtable, I should say. And interesting topic. Yeah, I'll come back to that. Just for the record, running the AC station tonight, the Fox Tango 101 Echo from the mid-70s, barefoot to my dipole, inverted V hanging off a 35-foot mast here in La Cañada. I was out of here for a lot of years. Well, I kept my license. I didn't really
operate very much. So that was because I was living in a condo and had an antenna in the attic which didn't work too well. And then I kind of got back into it, and since that time I've always thought it would be really cool to run into somebody on the air that I had known as a ham growing up in the Midwest in the Chicago area in the 1960s and through the mid-70s also. But it has never happened. So, now of course, most of my contacts from that era are in 9-land, not 6-land, so that would argue against a chance meeting. But I just think it would be really cool to find somebody that, even just somebody I'd worked and had a QSL card from the mid-1960s, for example, but it has never happened. There were some hams that lived a few miles to the north of us. I don't have their calls to the top of my mind at the moment. It's not that relevant anyway. But one of them was a guy named Lee and one was a guy named Mike. And one day I just went up to visit them, and man, it was a long walk. I'd never walked that far in my life before. And this guy Lee had a really nice Hammerland station. I forget what his transmitter was. Hammerland, I think 170 or 180. I thought it was really cool. And but I started searching around on QSZ for calls, from the cards that I had. And I found this guy Lee. He was still active. I sent him an email. And he got back to me, and we chatted, and we said we would set up a sked. But then for some reason, it never happened. And it's probably my fault. I probably just dropped the ball on it. So maybe this roundtable will incentivize me to pick the ball back up again and see if I can get in touch with one of the local hams that I knew back in the 1960s. But other than that, Zippo from WA9JIB. I'm kind of disappointed. I really liked it. I had some good friends who were hams. I'm not sure they're still alive. But yeah, just nothing else to report here. So let's see what Ken has. KW1. No, what Jay has. NY6L WA9JIB.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. WA9JIB. NY6LJ here in Hesperia. We're running the Kenwood TS830S barefoot here. And hopefully the station's getting out. And, all right, as far as any story, oh boy, I just don't have anything at this moment. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the question. Anyway, over to Ken, KW1NG, NY6L Hesperia.
Okay, Dave, thank you very much. NY6L in the group, KW1NG. Forgive me, I'm running 7300 tonight. The 32S3 is intermittent, and sometimes I play current, sometimes I don't. I gotta get in there and wiggle things and clean things and so forth. So next week we'll be on the S-line on the vintage. Running into an SB1000 linear, about 500 watts, peak out into a full wave 80 meter delta loop up about 35 feet. So I had a friend in high school, and we went through high school together. He was WN6KHH and then WA6KHH, and I had my novice and then became WB6LEC, and we hung out together all the time. I had a Swan 500, or I think it was a 500 at the time. No, I didn't have that yet. It was it was my SB300 receiver and a DX60 transmitter. So I was just on CW. Hadn't gotten the sideband yet. So anyway, he had an SPE33, so that we could use to get on sideband with. Well, we were always fixing that thing because it was kind of a mess. And that was fun. So we went through high school together, hung out a lot, fixed things, and all that. And he went into the Navy, and I went off to college, and we lost track of each other. Let's just leave it at that. So last in the Navy. He had a heart transplant a few years ago, but he's doing all right. And so that was just kind of wild to meet him. You know, it's like, what do you say to somebody you haven't seen for 40 years or more, you know? 50 even, yeah, close to 50. So that's pretty wild. Anyway, got married and had a family, and so did I, and so forth. So we chatted for quite a while and said we'd have to get together someday, but he lives over in Peru. I live here in Alpine, San Diego area, and we get together on Facebook every once in a while on Messenger. So we chatted each other. So it was kind of nice to run into an old high school buddy there at HRO. All right, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It goes on to George, W6YDC. And by the way, I heard the dinner bell, so I'm going to listen around for just a little bit more, and then I'm going to take off. KW1NG.
Okay, very good. And nice story there. W6YEC. Thanks, Rocco, for taking things tonight. I don't know how anybody can beat Bob's story. Yeah, man, got a kick out of that. Anyway, we're running the KWM2A here tonight. D104 microphone, driving a 30L1 for about 500 watts, just like Dave there. Full wave loop up about 40 feet. And I'm monitoring my big MSJ meter with my iPhone. I figured out how to get the camera close to it, so when I'm operating the remote, I'm able to see what's going on power-wise. That's always concerned me when I operate the remote or the linear from remote, and wondering, making sure everything is okay. And it's kind of interesting how with the internet, all the movement on the meter there, the power meter, is a little irregular. But it's letting me know that I'm putting out power looking at the iPhone. Anyway, that's beside the point. Anyhow, interestingly enough, I got a text, I think it was, from a junior high friend the other day. It wasn't too long ago. And he lives up in Ramona. His name is John German. I don't remember what his call is now, but I think he changed it, if I'm not mistaken. And he was same grade, maybe he was one grade under me back in those days. I remember going to his house, and he had a S40 receiver, you know, with the beautiful green dial, the helicopter, the S40B. I have one sitting right in front of me. I'm looking at it, and I used to just be jealous of that. And I had an old Navy receiver, and it was okay, but it was big and heavy. But I thought the helicopter S40 looked so cool. I thought, that's awesome that he was able to get that. Maybe his parents helped him with it. And so it was nice to hear from him, so I sent him a text back, had a little communication. Hadn't seen each other for, haven't seen him yet, but did have him text me, so that's kind of cool. I'm looking forward to running into him here one of these days. And then another one comes to mind. There's a fellow I met some years ago here that I remember when I was a kid going to his house, and he was probably just a teenager himself, maybe right there, late teens or something. I remember going to his house up on a hill over in La Mesa, and he was a CW operator. His name is Terry, and I think it's called now as N6 CW. And he had a 3-element beam that was not very high, for 20 meters, and he had an HT32. And what was distinctive about it, he didn't have the receiver, he wasn't looking at the receiver or the transmitter, they were looking at each other, and he had his bug in between, and he was a high-speed CW operator. And I remember hearing these loud signals that I'd never heard before back in those days. And he's working Japan so easily, big signal. Of course, today that wouldn't be a big deal on 20 meters. But for me, that was an outstanding memory as a kid, and I was so excited to run into him here many years later. So that's my two experiences. I cheated Montana, so I guess I can get away with it. And we let him squeak by tonight with an 830. I can't remember when that 830 came out, but it was sometime in the 80s, I think. But it's okay, Bob. It's called, we honor the elderly. I should talk, huh? All right. With that, let's see. Was I supposed to turn it to anybody? I don't think so. Maybe it's back to you, Rocco. N6KN, W6YEC.
Okay. More great stories. That's a fun evening. Okay, the next four will be Matthew, N4DLA. Please give it to Ken, K6CTW. Followed by Ron, K2RP. Then we'll pick up Gary, WA7BIP. Before you take it there, Matthew, anybody else trying to get on the list?
Whiskey Alpha 6, Lima Juliet Romeo.
Okay, WA6LJR. Remind me of your name, please.
Bill, Bravo, India, Lima, Lima.
Okay, so we'll do 5 here at the end, and so Matthew, give it to Ken, give it to Ron, give it to WA7BIP, and Gary, please give it to Bill, WA6LJR. Okay, we'll do those 5. And for DLA, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Rocco, N6KN, and the Vintage Sideband Roundtable from Matthew, N4DLA, in Orinda, California, about 15 miles east of San Francisco, using an Atlas 210X, running about 50 watts out, Shure 444 microphone, straight feeding a 75 meter dipole up maybe 20 feet. Probably why you can't hear me that well right now. And as far as meeting somebody, I haven't really had that type of experience, moving from the East Coast to the West Coast. Haven't run into anybody from Maryland or Tennessee, even at State and Ham Venture when I went there in 2009. But around late 2006, I bought a VHS tape. I tape recorded our local amateur television net back when it was analog, and showed it to Ham, who was not on television, just he wanted to see what it was like at Ham in Sacramento, and he saw somebody on there that he hadn't seen in about 30 years at that time, since the 70s, and the station had a new call sign. He told me what his old call sign used to be. The station had a vanity call that was on TV that my friend knew from the 70s, from when both of them lived in the Bay Area. So the other station had since moved to Stockton. And so my friend looked up the guy he saw on TV on QRZ, and they emailed each other, so they had connected in about 30 years. So that was pretty cool to see that just randomly, because I brought the VHS tape over to show the net from the digital amateur television net to my friend who had been on TV before. Okay, over to Ken. K6 CTW and the Vintage Sideband Roundtable. And great signals out of everybody tonight. S9 Plus from N4DLA. Okay, thanks a lot, Anthony. N4DLA.
couple of ham friends, but nothing that we stayed with. I lived on Long Island after college. I was very active in a club there. But again, most of the people were older. There were two people that I don't want to say that I came across them, but we've been in touch sometimes every couple of years, sometimes more. One fellow who he was with us with a 3-week trip to Alaska and Canada, a big driving trip, which was a lot of fun to relive. Another fellow who was in dental school when I met him, and was just finishing dental school, and we became friends for a long time. He's one of the ones that every couple of years, he's retired now. But the big problem with starting young is most of the people that we know are in the silent T category. And the question reminded me of that, but it also reminded me of all the wonderful relationships that we had. One guy was my age. And I've been in touch with him all these years because he married my sister. So he's been my brother-in-law for over 50 years now. He long since even made radio with me. 60 years ago, maybe, or 50 years ago, whatever. A long time ago. But that's one relationship that came out of AM radio that we cherish. Wonderful.
Okay, Rod. You got a scratchy microphone there, good buddy. WA7BIP. Gary, take it and give it to Bill, WA6LJR.
Okay, thanks, Rocco. And, yeah, I was having a little trouble hearing Ron there. Usually, not any problem, but I think the band's shifting a little bit. Had a little problem with station before him, too. So, anyway, we're here. This is WA7BIP. Gary, located in Duarte. And running the Inwood TS130F and the barefoot to vertical antenna, and running the RCA HQ108 microphone. But very interesting stories tonight, and enjoying what everybody else is saying. And I have two instances of connecting with people after not being around for a long time. And I actually I was the one that initiated the contact. So it was my Elmer who got me into ham radio. I hadn't talked to him like 45 years or something. And I finally located him. He came from Seven Land, was on the Oregon coast for a while, and then I found him in a trailer park in Apache Junction, Arizona. And I got a chance to talk to him on the phone. We didn't work on the air. I don't think he had a station at that time because he was getting up there in the years. And I got a chance to contact him and tell him how grateful I was for his assistance in helping me become a ham radio and launch my very successful and gratifying electronics career. So I got a chance to thank him before he passed on and became a silent key. And that was K6DFM, Chuck Albright. And the other one was a good friend of mine from college. We shared an office in graduate school. And I hadn't seen him for about trip my wife has never been through there. Sure enough, he had the same old phone number. Called me back, very excited, and before he left, he got his hand license. And he was only a technician, so he had upgraded with, I forget what he used now, he's general or extra. But anyway, we swung by there. It was just supposed to be a quick little conversation, say hello, how are things going, and move on. We spent 2 days with him. So that was a very interesting reconnect, and now we're trying to get him on the air with a stealth HF antenna in his HOA so that he can get on the radio, and then we can work each other consistently almost, every week, whatever we can set up. So it's just a reconnecting. And what happens, I notice, when you do that, it's almost like you pick up where you left off. It's very uncanny. I've never had anybody look at me and say, who are you? And have to re-jog their memory. It's like just picking up right where we left off 50 years ago. So I sure enjoyed the phone. Okay, it's getting late in the evening. Let me pass it over to Bill. I hope you're talking to me, Bill, there in Central California Beach area there. WA6LJR. This is WA7VIP. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you very much, and great stories, everybody. Hope you can still copy. This is Bill, WA6LJR in Palm Beach, where the clams are jumping out of the sand and the whales are jumping out of the ocean. I hear them at night. We keep the windows open here because it's very nice weather. So thank you, everybody, for letting me check in. I guess I'm the tail end. Good night, and WA6LJR. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, thanks for checking in. Let's see, I'll call out one more time. Anybody else that want to get on the list? One last shot. Okay, well, what a terrific evening it has been listening to all these stories. And there have been some really interesting ones. I'll tell a short one of my own before I wrap up. When I was in high school, first getting on the air, I had a very poor antenna and a DX60. One of my friends, a guy who barely paid any attention to me because he was in his 20s and already working in Tektronix, and was very close, so, I would hear him because he would wipe out the entire band. He had a TA-33 on a 50-foot tower, and I couldn't believe what DX he was working. Anyway, I remember his call, W7WLL. I moved away from Portland, and in 2018, which is 50 years later, I heard W7WLL, and I recognized the call him up, and yep, it was the same guy. He'd moved to the Oregon coast, and we reconnected, and it was super, he was very friendly, and, we chit-chatted. This time I had the big tower and the big beam, but, so the tables were turned, but terrific guy, and it was really nice to hear him, and I've talked to him a few times since, so that was after 50 years, so you just never know. All right, so this is a difficult decision. Bob's story about the wife swapping is really hard to beat, but Lisa, you beat them all. KF6QNG, your story about reconnecting with some guy from the Long Beach Radio Club, that's just terrific, and just really nice to hear about. Lisa, I didn't know all of those details. KF6QNG, you get the golden cup, over.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm very surprised. But, yeah, it's, Dennis and I often remark, who would have ever thought. So, just said you never know where life is going to take you. And, yeah, just some random guy that joined the radio club in, like 2001, I think. a lot, so I only got one husband but two out of it. So anyway, thank you very much. And Bob, I think you should at least get an honorable mention because that's pretty incredible. And anyway, thanks a lot, Rocco, and I'll send it back your way. And 6KN from KM62NC.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob gets the runner-up status. No question about that one, Bob. That's pretty amazing. All right, guys, that's been fun, and see you all next week. And 6KN is clear and closing down the vintage SSB Roundtable. See you later.